Hello and welcome. I'm Al Barrows, and this is UFO Disclosure, the podcast that's meant to show an average person's reaction to all the UAP, UFO news from everywhere and anywhere. Today, I'll be following up on a podcast I did last year on the Las Vegas family that reported a UAP landing in their backyard. I'll also be talking about a 1.5 million-year-old UAP that was reportedly found on the moon. And finally, I'll be discussing whether Nikola Tesla was a non-human intelligence. A declassified FBI document in the archives of the FBI official website seems to confirm that this is true. Stay tuned, it should be a great podcast. Okay, so this article is from the Independent News, and it's entitled, Las Vegas Teen Whose Family Was Ridiculed for Calling 911 to Report Alien in Backyard Speaks Out. So Angel Kenmore, who was ridiculed after his family called 911 to report seeing a 10-foot-tall alien in their backyard, has spoken out a year later and is sticking by the story. And I thought this was significant because it's been a year and he still is sticking by his story. So you got to wonder, is there some truth to this? Angel Kenmore, who's 17, claimed that he was with his family in the yard of their Las Vegas home on the night of April the 30th, last year, 2023, when a bright light came crashing into the ground and he saw a, quote, giant creature. Other witnesses reported seeing the bright light, which was captured on a police officer's body camera footage. And that was corroborating evidence, by the way. The actual UAP was filmed on a police officer's body cam. The article goes on to say the family called 911 with the caller telling the dispatcher, quote, "I swear to God, this is not a joke. We're terrified." The Kenmore family went public with their story last year. Angel revealed that he could make out a tall, very thin creature between 8 feet and 10 feet tall. The Kenmores even created drawings of what they claimed to have seen. The family was relentlessly mocked for their claims by some, but their story also brought UFO hunters to their home, forcing them to put, quote, "no trespassing" signs, end quote, around the property. If you guys have a visual on this, there's a sketch that Angel made, Angel Kenmore. And by the way, I don't think that Kenmore is a real name. It might be an alias. If you hear the recording, which I'll show in a moment, they have a Hispanic accent and they seem to be Hispanic. So Kenmore is probably an alias. Okay, so now almost 1 year later, Angel has spoken again to insist that he was telling the truth. He said this week that he was left, quote, "paralyzed by fear," end quote, by the apparent extraterrestrial encounter. He says, quote, "it was moving and breathing. It was pee off like it wanted to do something, looking at me. I remember he was growling," end quote, he said. So while Angel originally said that the creature was an alien, he said he now believes it is a demon. Okay, so he's going from thinking that it was an alien to now a demon. He's quoted as also saying, "I couldn't move," end quote. He told the outlet, explaining how he looked at the creature for around 30 seconds. So 30 seconds, he got a pretty good look at it. Angel also hit out at the family's critics, saying, quote, "they can think whatever they want," end quote. He goes on to say, "if I was doing it for fame, I would be on YouTube. I made no money off this. I don't need money. It was a really bad and traumatizing experience," end quote. Okay, and now I'm going to show a clip of Angel so that you can hear it from his own words.
What's interesting also, Alex, in the year, almost the year that has passed, is that something else has begun to happen, they say, now inside the home. And they're very afraid of what they have been, what they say that they have been witnessing inside their home. Can you describe what it is they're telling you?
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why Angel has pivoted from calling what he saw that night an alien instead, now calling it a demon, because he feels like he's seeing so much paranormal activity and just strange, unexplainable things happening inside of his home. There was two anecdotes, one in particular that we're about to show you that literally made the hairs on my arm stand up just because it is so freaky, so unexplainable. We have a segment of that part of the conversation. You mentioned paranormal activity. What exactly did you see?
Well, I was in another room, my brother called me, and there was a upside down cross, and there was a Jesus statue in it. They ripped Jesus out of it, they threw him like across the room, and it was floating upside down.
Are you saying floating in the air?
Yeah, like in the air, it was floating upside down.
What did you do? I mean, did you go pick it up? Did you knock it down? Like how?
No, I didn't do nothing, I was just sitting there, I was crazy, I was like, what?
But how did it come down? It's not still floating right now, is it?
No, it came down, so we got closer to it and then it dropped.
It fell to the ground. A crucifix.
Yeah.
Floating in the air, upside down. The Jesus on the crucifix had been ripped off.
Yeah.
And it was floating.
Yep.
And you can say definitively, without lies, that that is what you saw.
Yes. Swear to God, that's what I saw.
What do you believe that is? How could something like that happen? That's not physically possible in this world. And that's just one story of many stories of paranormal activity that's happened inside this house, according to Angel. He said that the family has had to take some really drastic measures to make themselves feel safe within their home. We're going to talk more about all of that paranormal activity tomorrow night on Banfield.
And one last question about just what their house, has become, because, typically people are rabid about stuff like this, and people will come from all corners of not just the country but the earth to visit places like this. Have they been inundated with tourists and looky-loos and people who are not maybe as kind as they should be when they arrive on the property?
Yeah, you bet. I mean, as you mentioned, this story sparked global attention. So everybody started coming to this house to get a peek at the backyard, hoping to catch a sight of a UFO or an alien or a demon, whatever it was back there. And so that's the reason why you see so many no trespassing signs. If you just look in the distance, you see one on the window, there's one on the garage. On their front door, there's a no trespassing sign, also a concealed carry sign that says that, we will protect our property. So in the end, this has caught a lot of attention, and so much so that they're seeing around 4 or 5 cars almost each and every day, people stopping by, people even jumping over the fence, breaking into their home, trying to do whatever they can to catch a glimpse.
So distressing. Alex Capriello, thank you. I know we've got more reporting ahead, so I appreciate the time that you've taken out there, all this time after the instance itself. Thank you. And, we all know that anything can be faked in this day and age, right? Just like anything. But so too can it be investigated and dissected and analyzed and picked apart using state-of-the-art technology. So we enlisted an internationally renowned expert in evidence and crime scene reconstruction to examine that Las Vegas video. And we thought surely he would have some answers, and he did. They just weren't the answers that we were expecting.
Okay, so Angel has gone from thinking that it's an extraterrestrial to a demon. And that was all taken from News Nation. And Ashley was the host there. And Alex, I believe, was the reporter talking to Angel. I'm going to go on with News Nation because they got an expert to investigate and see if he could find any holes in Angel's story.
Fuzzy video on YouTube and then decide space aliens do or do not exist. And it's another thing entirely to subject those sightings to the same kind of scientific rigor that puts, say, killers in prison. Scott Roeder is that kind of skeptic. He is an evidence expert and crime scene reconstructionist with 33 years of experience and 1,500 cases to his credit. He is the founder of the Evidence Room, a group that assembles specialists in forensic animation, 3D modeling, and motion graphics. He took a close look at the video that was recorded by that family in Las Vegas, and he applied his technology to try to debunk it. Here he is on his YouTube channel, Crime Scene, discussing what he calls the entity in the family's backyard.
We can take a video and look at whether or not there is an artificial artifact added to it or not. And in this case, we can definitively say, to a degree of scientific certainty, that this entity, this thing in the video, is there in the physical reality in which the Kenmore family is also there. Like, this is so critical because you can clearly see through the slots in the fence that there is a leg motion moving from the right to the left side of the screen. And clearly it is behind there. So this isn't just like a head floating in space. This is a head of that is somehow that does not have full opacity, that the opacity of the head of the shadow is only at about 33% opacity versus a normal shadow, which would be at 100% opacity, or an object in the screen, which is at 100%. And this isn't anything that you did. It's just what you were able to determine, that this shadow being, or this being in the shadows, possibly creating its own shadow or smoky filter or cloaking technique, is not only cloaking itself from the people there, but cloaking itself from the camera itself, in that it's minimizing our ability to identify pixels inside of that shadow.
I'm joined now by UFO expert Ben Hansen. He's a former federal agent and now the host of UFO Witness on Discovery Plus. Ben, it's great to have you on the program tonight again. So, I mean, your reaction to what, Scott Roeder did with his analytics, the shadow that you saw that was behind the fence as well as way above the fence, I guess your reaction to all of that.
Well, thanks, Ashley. Yeah, I'm excited because it took a while, I think, for anyone to get a copy of the raw video. I don't personally have it, but I'm glad that Scott has done this. I don't detect anything overt as a red flag that I would say that made me suspect that it was edited. So I concur with him on that. And it also appears that there is some sort of shadow that's present behind the slats of the fence, which he pointed out. And then you have kind of a head, it looks like, at the top of the fence. Where I kind of feel it might be a jump is people online then started to say, well, this is evidence of a cloaking creature of some sort. There is a lot going on in the video. If you look, there's 2 or 3 different light sources. And anytime you have that happening, you can have a lot of shadows from different angles. So unfortunately, we'll never have the same exact circumstance where we can go back and test it to see what might be causing a shadow effect.
There is this one aspect of it, and I'm not sure if our producers can just let the video go, but when they walk in past the gate, something startles them and they freak out. I mean, for lack of a better description, there's no way this is acting. Actors don't do it this well. Something startles them to the right and they spin around and they kind of run out, and the video kind of goes, as it would if you were terrified.
It does, and I think that is genuine. If you look, I think they're looking at something towards the back of the yard, and something spooks them, where I feel that it might be a little bit of, I don't know, call it forensic gymnastics, is to say that it was caused by this thing off to the right, because as you can see right there, that shadow appears on top of the fence, but he's not looking to the right. If this was some sort of entity that was like 3 feet away from him, I think that's what would really scare anybody. So that's where you have these theories that people are saying, well, it's partially cloaked, it's fully cloaked, didn't want to be seen, but only the video picked it up. So I don't know about that. I think just based on the video, though, it's great that we have verification that it's not been edited.
I know you talk about confirmation bias as well. Explain to the audience how you think that might be working its way into this as an alternative theory.
Well, if you think about it and go back to the original, the whole background of what just preceded this, is you had this really bright object that streaked across the sky. Right, and I do believe that now is a meteoroid, and it may have nothing to do with the family's actual sighting. They believe they saw a light come down to their backyard. And there was a lot of light and commotion, noise, and so when they went out to the backyard, they're already adrenaline's pumping, they're hypersensitive to sights and sounds. I'm in no way suggesting that they made anything up, but perception can be skewed now that this is something out of this world we're out to see in our backyard. And then anything that might have a combination of shadows or sights they're not used to, It can be amplified in your visual perception. And this is just a suggestion, but I do feel the witnesses are being credible as far as describing what they saw. And especially look at that reaction when they see whatever it is back there and they come running out of there, and it's affected at least Angel to this day. He still has trouble with what he saw.
Thank you for watching.
Okay, so now we know that the American Meteor Society says that they're sure it was a meteor that caused that streak in the night sky, with 21 reported sightings of it stretching across California, Nevada, and Utah. So that's what the family saw and what other witnesses saw and what possibly the police officer's body cam recorded. It was an actual meteor that the American Meteor Society has already confirmed. The investigator, Scott, confirmed that the video had not been tampered with and that was actually something in there, and that whatever was there was making it difficult. Speculation is that there might have been some sort of a cloaking going on. So 1 year later, the teen Angel Kenmore has gone from thinking that it's an extraterrestrial to some sort of a demon. And as you saw on the News Nation clip there that Ashley Banfield showed, a investigator studied the video and confirmed that it hadn't been tampered with. There was some sort of a shadow figure there, possibly cloaking itself. There was also Ben Hope, the show UFO Witness, that seemed to confirm that he thought that Angel Kenmore's testimony was honest and that the family seemed to be startled by something to the right as the shadow figure appeared in the video. I'd like to transition now and talk about the 1.5 million year old UAP that was reportedly found on the moon. Okay, so I'm going to be reading from an article by Vicky Verma, and it's from the online magazine How and Whys. The article is entitled 1.5 million year old alien spaceship found on moon with alien bodies during Apollo 19 and 20 missions. Official history tells us that 17 missions were launched between 1961 and 1975, of which 11 were manned, Apollo 7 through Apollo 17. During this time, 6 successful landings on the lunar surface were made. The Apollo 18, 19, and 20 flights were canceled due to the lack of new scientific value at the huge expense of the state budget and taxpayers. However, in 2007, Italian freelance journalist Luca Scantamburlo took a written interview with William Rutledge, who claims to be a member of the secret Apollo 20 mission. According to him, he was an employee of Bell Laboratories and served in the U.S. Air Force. Rutledge attracted public attention by starting to distribute photographs and videos of the Apollo 20 mission online in 2007, which captured the same spaceship and its pilots. This is the alien spaceship photograph taken from one of the Apollo missions, and you can see it right in the center here. Seems to be embedded in a crater. What is the essence of the information from Rutledge? He claimed that during the Apollo 15 mission to the moon, an unidentified man-made object was discovered and photographed on its surface. And you can see that photograph right here, if you guys have a visual on it. During missions 16 and 17, several more photographs were taken, and reconnaissance of the terrain from orbit was carried out. The task of missions 18 and 19 is not really clear. Rutledge only says that during these missions, a number of problems occurred, as a result of which research data was lost. It was originally planned to land next to an alien ship and study it using rovers. In 1976, the Apollo 20 mission was launched, which included William Rutledge, Alexei Leonov, and Leona Snyder. They managed to land by the ship, get inside, and inspect the interior of the ship and the bodies of the pilots. One of the sources said that they not only examined the bodies, but also took the head of one of the bodies with them. Wow. The dimensions of the ship were 33 by 70 by 510 meters. The age is estimated at 1.5 million years. Inside, there are many signs of biological life, remnants of vegetation in the engine compartment of the ship, stones of a triangular shape that exude a yellow liquid that has some medical properties. The remains of small bodies, about 10 centimeters, which I believe is a couple of inches or 3 inches, that lived in a network of glass pipes piercing the whole ship. That's bizarre. If you guys can see this, there's a close-up of the alien ship right here. They found a humanoid female, 1.65 meters, not very large at all. She had genitals, hair, 6 fingers. She was a pilot. There was an aerobatics device connected to her fingers and eyes. The body had no clothes, and they had to cut 2 cables connected to the nose. Leonov detached the device from the eyes. Blood clots or biofluids burst and froze in the mouth, nose, eyes, and parts of the body. And some parts of the body were in unusually good condition. Hair and skin were protected by a thin, transparent layer of protection. The condition seemed neither dead nor alive. The booth was full of inscriptions and formed from long, hollow, hexagonal tubes. And here's a series of pictures included with the article from Apollo 15, Apollo 17, Apollo 16, another one from Apollo 15 again, and some frames claimed to have been taken from an overflight with zoomed in video camera. These seem to be colorized. Okay, so I thought I'd end by showing the close-up of the ship on the right. And this is the head that they brought back. It seems to be a female. And here's that facial apparatus that's connected to the nostrils, the mouth, and the eyes. So I thought Rutledge's story was interesting, especially since it was backed up with pictures. And I'd like to move on and transition into the declassified document that was found on the FBI's official website, insinuating that Nikola Tesla might have been a non-human intelligence. So for more than a half a century, incredible information about Nikola Tesla has been kept secret, and a declassified FBI document has revealed that he might have possibly been brought to Earth from Venus. Tesla was remarkably intelligent and far ahead of his time. In fact, if it were not for Tesla's inventions, the world as we know it would be nearly half a century behind where we are today in terms of technological advancement. This has understandably led many to wonder about Tesla's origins. Was he even from this planet? So in the archives of the FBI's official website, there is a very mysterious document that contains a very unusual statement regarding Nikola Tesla. This declassified FBI document, known as the Interplanetary Sessions Newsletter, it was written on June the 14th, 1957, seems to suggest that this may be, although unbelievably bizarre, might be true. It seems to suggest that Tesla was originally from the planet Venus. It reads in part, quote, "The space people have visited the Tesla engineers many times and have told us that Tesla was a Venusian, brought to the planet as a baby in 1856 and left with Mr. and Mrs. Tesla in a remote mountain province in what is now Yugoslavia. Margaret Storm wrote a book called Return of the Dove, a story of the life of Nikola Tesla. And it's about his inventions, how his inventions played a part in the New Age. Much of the data for this book was taken and supplied to Mrs. Storm through transcripts received on the Tesla set. And this is a radio-type machine invented by Tesla in 1938 for interplanetary communication. Tesla died in 1943, and his engineers did not build the Tesla set until after his death. It was placed in operation in 1950, and since that time, the Tesla engineers have been in close touch with spaceships. The space people have visited the Tesla engineers many times and have told them that Tesla was a Venusian brought to this planet as a baby and left with Mr. and Mrs. Tesla in a remote mountain province in what is now Yugoslavia. Tesla claimed that he had found a way to start interplanetary communication. He explained that the location of the Egyptian pyramid was responsible for the power. He built a tower facility known as the Tesla Experimental Station that sought to take advantage of the Earth energy field. The locations of this tower and another tower in Colorado Springs were chosen according to the laws of where the pyramids of Giza were built, related to the relationship between the elliptical orbit of the planet and the equator. The design was intended for wireless transmission of energy. Based on the number of patents that Tesla had on record, in addition to nearly 500 patents that he had either sold or did not register, Tesla would have had to have created an unbelievable 20 inventions every year. So this document from the FBI called the Interplanetary Sessions Newsletter seems to leave us more questions than answers. Still, it's a remarkable finding, I think. I'd like to follow up with an article on exopolitics written by Michael Salla that talks about how Nikola Tesla might have started the UFO wave back in the 1940s, even before the Roswell crash, by sending out a signal out into space that might have been seen by NHIs. Okay, this is an article by Michael Salla, Dr. Michael Salla, called The New Majestic Document Reveals U.S. Diplomatic Relations with Extraterrestrials. And this was written by Dr. Michael Salla on June the 16th, 2017. So it's been a while. I'm going to paraphrase Dr. Michael Salla's article. So it says that the Majestic 12 document describes a variety of extraterrestrial related encounters with humanity. This document includes claims that Nikola Tesla's pioneering radio broadcasts into outer space in the late 1800s alerted distant extraterrestrials to humanity's existence, which led them traveling to our planet, and later President Eisenhower established full diplomatic relations with these visiting extraterrestrials in 1954. So I'm just going to skip down and go into some key points made in the document and their significance. So according to the cover page, the document is a, quote, preliminary briefing created by the Defense Intelligence Agency's Office of Counterintelligence on January the 8th, 1989. The full title of the briefing package is, quote, Assessment of the Situation, Statement of Position on Unidentified Flying Objects, and it is addressed to the Office of the President. So the CIA director at the time of the 1989 briefing was William Webster, who served as director from May the 26th, 1987 to August the 31st, 1991. Previously, he was FBI director from February the 23rd, 1978, before heading the CIA under President Reagan. His Wikipedia entry mentions that he is the only person ever to have held both positions. The briefing document refers to 4 groups of extraterrestrial visitors, which are listed in order of importance to our planet and cites whether they are friendly or not. These are the basic types of EBEs so far confirmed, and they are listed here in descending order of their influence on our planet. And I'm reading right from the document here. So the first one, A, is Earth-like humanoids. They are several variations more or less like ourselves. The majority of these are friendly and are the bulk of our EBE contacts. Most have a high degree of psychic ability and all use science and engineering of an advanced nature. So EBE stands for extra biological entity. The second EBE on the list is small humanoids or grays. The grays, so-called for the hue of their skin possessed by most of this type, are a sort of drone. They are not unlike the worker ants or bees. They are mostly under the psychic control of the Earth-like humanoids who raise them like pets or a kind of slave. Assuming the grays are under benign control, they are harmless. The third group of EBEs are non-human EBEs. These are in several classes and come from worlds where dominant morphology took a different evolutionary course. Many of these are dangerous, not for organized hostile intentions, but because such creatures do not hold human life as sacred. Thus far, contact has been minimal, with only a handful of unfortunate encounters. And the last group is called transmorphic entities. Of all the forms of EBE, or extraterrestrial biological entities, studied so far by Operation Majestic, these are the most difficult to understand or even to give a description of. Essentially, such entities are not beings or creatures. They exist in some other dimension or plane, which is to say, not our space or time. They do not use devices or travel in space. In essence, these entities are composed of pure mind energies. They are said to be capable of taking on any physical form that they channel their energy to as matter. Okay, so he goes on to say, as the above description suggests, most extraterrestrial interactions are depicted as friendly, particularly those involving the human-looking entities. They have engaged in a number of non-hostile interactions with humanity that date back to Nikola Tesla's pioneering radio and energy broadcasts in the late 1800s. The briefing document continues, and I quote, in 1899, the Yugoslav electrical scientist Nikola Tesla, most noted for his introduction of alternating current to electrical power transmission and a laboratory device named after him, the Tesla coil, embarked on a number of researches that have made this the saucer century. Tesla had long proposed that it was possible to directly broadcast pure electrical energies at a distance without loss of power and without wires. By 1899, and with government and private scientific backing, Tesla had chosen a site near Colorado Springs, Colorado, to conduct a massive and never repeated experiment. Tesla's purpose to gather the Earth's own magnetic field and to use the Earth as a huge transmitter to send signals to outer space in an attempt to contact whoever might be living there. Tesla had no idea that the specific type of power he had generated was coursing through space and caused great havoc many light years away. Without realizing it, Tesla's use of the Earth's magnetic field to direct radio transmissions into space had created a disruptive energy weapon. Wow. Essentially, the world's first directed energy weapon, but at a planetary scale. Jesus. The effect of doing this was analogous to the development of warp drive in the fictional Star Trek series, and humanity was now on the galactic radar for the first time. This is what I meant about Nikola Tesla being responsible for the UFO wave even before Roswell, or maybe instead of Roswell. The briefing document describes what happened as a result of Tesla's experiments. The extraterrestrial intelligence, or EIs, attempted to respond to his transmissions in a form of binary code that they routinely use for long-range communications, and asked that he cease sending. Of course, Tesla had no way of understanding the message he received back from space. Fortunately, the anger of local residents at the side effects of his research forced him to shut down the Colorado Springs experiments in the same year he began them. Significantly, the briefing document is acknowledging that communications were instantaneous and that the speed of light is not an absolute limit, at least for the kind of communication used by the aliens. Critically, it was Tesla's experiments, according to the briefing document, which ushered in the flying saucer age due to the powerful effect of his energy transmission, which had used the energy's magnetic field. So I'll read that one more time because this is the point of my reading this article. It was Tesla's experiments, according to the briefing document, which ushered in the flying saucer age due to the powerful effect of his energy transmissions, which had used the Earth's magnetic field. This then was the actual start of the so-called, quote, flying saucer age, end quote, of our time, as it became clear that our people were on the verge of an explosion of technical progress. The EIs decided on a long-term program, carefully calculated and seemingly random contact with the eventual goal of raising our awareness of our place in the galactic community. With the advent of the atomic age, this program was escalated to include eventual diplomatic contact with many of Earth's governments. The same approach of staging apparent accidental contact was chosen for its low psychological impact on the human race. This was the situation in the case of the United States crashes like the Roswell crash and the Aztec, New Mexico crash, for example. While the Roswell crash is well known, the next case described in the document is not. There was a controlled landing of a flying saucer on March the 25th, 1948 in New Mexico, which the briefing document describes. The controlled landing occurred in a small desert canyon on the private grazing land of a local farmer and rancher about 2.2 miles northeast of the Aztec, New Mexico. This ship was determined to be 99.9 feet in diameter. Inside the upper cabin, the team found the bodies of two small humanoids about 4 feet in height, strapped into seats like those in a jet cockpit. These ETs were dead. The briefing document reported that the ETs had died because of an atmospheric leak caused by impact with a nearby cliff face. The report then described the discovery of cryogenic tubes with human-looking bodies in the lower level, 4 of which were successfully resuscitated. 4, okay. A closer look at the sealed tubes, which looked like the doors of clothing dryers at a laundromat, revealed that they were a complex form of refrigeration system. 2 were empty, and 12 contained the bodies of what looked like human adults and small children as well as infants, all frozen as if preserved for specimens. Eventually, the medical team was able to resuscitate 1 adult Earth-like humanoid male and 3 Earth-like humanoid infants, all about 6 months of age, 2 male and 1 female. The rest of the infants and 1 more short gray-skinned, large-headed EBE perished. The adult survivor, according to the briefing document, who, though human-looking, had physiological differences, which included having two livers. The document describes how diplomatic negotiations began with the surviving adult extraterrestrial. After a hasty teleconference with President Truman, it was explained to the visitor that if his intentions proved to be non-hostile and he cooperated in an information exchange, he would be granted diplomatic status and would soon be with his own kind when the arrangement could be made. To this, he readily agreed, provided he was not asked to give away any specific secrets that could alter the course of our natural cultural development. What comes next details the year-long diplomatic exchanges between the extraterrestrial visitor and the Truman administration before he was returned to his people. Altogether, the Aztec EBE, or ET, lived under our protective custody, and I'm quoting here, on the Los Alamos complex for nearly a full year, from April 1948 until March 1949. After that, he was sequestered at a private safe house set up by Army intelligence, during which time he met with President and other two top government and military administrators prior to his being returned to his people in August 1949. He gave the scientists and military debriefers a great deal of mostly non-technical information about his civilization and its motives for being on our Earth. A total of 683 pages of transcripts were made of recorded conversations. The briefing document goes on to explain how technology given to U.S. military authorities would be given to the Soviet Union also by the extraterrestrials. The EB saw little harm in allowing us to keep the remains of his spacecraft for study, since he felt our understanding of it would only gradually develop. He did suggest that his people would probably have to drop one similar condition in the lapse of the Soviet Union, just for the balance of things to be sustained. And that was a direct quote. In 1948, the US and USSR were the world's only known nuclear powers and leaders of the two powerful political blocs. So it makes sense why they were specifically helped in this way. Yet more startling is what the extraterrestrials said about the alien infants. The team of scientists were told that the human-like infants were destined for our world anyway, and we were welcome to keep them. On August the 21st, 1949, the Aztec ET was returned to his own kind at a meeting site southwest of Kirtland Air Force Base, and arrangements were made for a future meeting at the same location to open diplomatic relations. In gifting 3 human-looking extraterrestrial infants to U.S. authorities, the apparent intent was that the aliens would be raised in human society and in the future help establish friendly relations between our two worlds. Presumably, the same thing happened in the USSR. By 1989, when the briefing document was prepared, the alien children would be 40 plus odd years old as adults. Now, were these alien children residing in the US and USSR, and were they a factor in the end of the Cold War, I wonder? In 1954, the briefing document refers to President Eisenhower traveling to Kirtland Air Force Base, where he established full diplomatic relations with the human-looking extraterrestrials. This is the famous 1954 President Eisenhower meeting. The preceding diplomatic treaty was drafted by the director of the Majestic 12 operation and a joint committee of extraterrestrial visitors and representatives of the U.S. Diplomatic Corps as a statement of intent. It was ratified and signed by Kirtland Air Force Base on July the 18th, 1954, by President Dwight D. Eisenhower and an individual on the behalf of the ETs. Authenticating the briefing document has only just begun, but so far experts have spotted no sign of fraud. The weight of this document And the significance is particularly extraordinary because a number of senior officials are named. If William Webster, and there's a picture of him here, if you guys have a visual, if William Webster was an MJ1 at the time of the briefing, then this would be highly significant. He is currently chairman of the Homeland Security Advisory Council, and this was back in 2017, mind you, and is in a position to go on the official record about the genuineness of the briefing document. If Webster does confirm or hints at its legitimacy and or his direct involvement, this will have a powerful effect on the prospects of official disclosure. You can say that again. It would blow disclosure wide open. Yeah, this alleged MJ12 document has a lot of good information. It has a potential impact on world events and disclosure today. So I hope you guys all enjoyed that. The Las Vegas incident I thought was worth following up, since Angel Kenmore, if that's his real name, has not backed down from his story. Plus, I came across the News Nation clips where they actually had experts checking out the video and were not able to debunk it. I also thought that the 1.5 million year old UAP story was worth looking into, since they are actual evidence photographs. And I hope that you guys also enjoyed the declassified documents that I went over on Nikola Tesla possibly being a non-human intelligence himself, and possibly being responsible for bringing UFOs to Earth and bringing attention to Earth. My name is Al Barrows. This has been UFO Disclosure. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Let's try and keep the kids in war-torn countries like Gaza and Ukraine and even the Sudan in our prayers. Let's create a positive shield of protection for them. They need our help. Thank you. Thank you all. And thank you for listening to my podcast.